Hello and welcome to Future Imperfect. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, or Admiral Phillips in this case, and joining me this week on the USS Future Imperfect is...
Captain Michael Dodd from thisweekingeek.net, and welcome everybody to, like I said, the Future Imperfect show where we discuss Star Trek related things, but also occasionally other sci-fi properties and things that we find interesting going on in the realm of science, technology, and beyond. And in this episode of Future Imperfect, we're going to be talking about Star Trek Discovery, because finally some new stuff has been released by CBS. And we're going to be talking about the San Diego Comic-Con trailer that was released this past week, and also talking about Star Trek Online, because something has actually happened with that, and oddly enough, with Star Trek Discovery as well. So we'll be sharing some musings, some thoughts, and hopefully some, hope for what's going to happen in the second season of Star Trek Discovery, dropping in early 2019, where it will have some competition against Game of Thrones, which will be dropping around the same time. Likely, anyway. My prediction is Super Bowl when this comes out. Other than that, I guess, Steve, we should start at the beginning. And that is talking about the Star Trek Discovery Season 2 trailer, which seems to focus around Captain Pike taking control of the USS Discovery under Starfleet article, blah, 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 technical jargon, and focusing around some mysterious signals that are coming across the Alpha Quadrant, across like 30,000 light years, and somehow it's tied into Mr. Spock, who is Michael's adoptive brother. And I gotta say, I like the way this trailer looks. It looks like the money was actually spent on the show. It doesn't look as... I don't want to call Season 1 of Discovery bad looking, but it didn't look like the budget was on the screen. Here, this looks like a movie.
It does. And coming from Season 1, where I was like the biggest skeptic, and I still don't love Season 1. It's good, but I still don't... It's still not my, favorite Trek. I can understand where most people would be kind of like, oh, it's my Trek now, and it's like, yeah, okay, Trek is Trek. But I did feel like a lot of Season 1 just felt like it was super dark. It was a lot of the CGI was kind of just wasted kind of on everything. And watching this trailer, seeing how they reincorporated the Discovery uniforms and made them the TOS colors, really was nice. A nice nod. The actor that's from the Inhumans, I think it's Anson Mount, is playing Captain Christopher Pike, and I think he nails the Jeffrey Hunter vibe really well. And I like how I think it's funny because I think I may have predicted that Captain Pike would take command of the Discovery.
I think so, too. Actually, I'm pretty sure in one of our early episodes, we kind of said what's going to happen in Season 2. Well, obviously, we did predict the Enterprise would show up, though you predicted the Pike thing. I didn't predict that, at all. At least I'm pretty sure I didn't anyway.
And I predicted that they'd have number 1 take command of the Enterprise, which is basically what's going to happen. I really don't know where this season's going to go. I do think they are going to show I think they're going to show the young version of Spock, and it'll be either Zachary Quinto or another actor entirely. I think that they were skating around it, and I think they're still skating around it, and that he will show up by the end of the season or next season.
I think if they backed up a truckload of money to Zachary Quinto's house, I'm pretty sure he'd be more than happy to reprise the role of Spock, which I think would be fantastic, because as far as I know, he's not doing a whole hell of a lot right now.
No.
But so I think that'd be great.
Did you see who they cast as number 1?
No, I didn't.
Rebecca Romijn.
Oh.
Mystique from the original X-Men trilogy.
That's pretty cool, actually.
She's playing number 1, filling the shoes of Majel Barrett, Gene Roddenberry's wife. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they play this out. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say wasn't Sulu or Scotty on the original?
I want to say Sulu was, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
I'm gonna check. No, they had Spock, and doesn't look like they had. No, it doesn't look like they had him. It must have been an earlier episode of maybe where no man has gone before the second pilot. I must have seen them on there, and assumed it was the same because they were all wearing the same type of uniform as this version. But I think it's kind of cool that they put it with this new, the Lenny Kravitz Getaway or Fly Away song. And then they have like all of this nice action moments. You get Pike showing up in it. You get a little bit of comedy. You get it's just I think that it's going to go for that lighter tone that TOS is known for, and still have like relevant missions that still tie to season 1, but yet will be new. So I'm very optimistic where they're going to take this.
I still get a Mass Effect vibe off of this, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because anything, pretty much, you can tell where they're drawing some of their inspiration from. In fact, when they showed their huge galaxy map and they showed the where all the signals were coming from, I couldn't help but think of mass relays.
Yeah, thinking about the Normandy, especially when you're looking at that the little red dots, the 7 red dots showing up in space.
Yeah, I was about to say, okay, we're going to jump to the Terminus systems today.
I'm wondering what those 7 dots are. It almost makes me wonder if that's like a splinter that has to do with like maybe the red matter from the future.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Although I've got a feeling, here's my season 2 prediction: they're going to encounter the friggin' Borg. I assure you, I've got a feeling, as despite them saying this ties into the Prime universe, look what they've done to the Klingons. I'm pretty sure we're going to see the Borg. We're going to see more TNG era enemies show up, or maybe we'll see Tholians, because Tholians would be kind of badass too.
Well, Tholians would actually be pretty interesting to see them get a new style. Being that we really didn't get to see much of them.
Because all we've seen is like the ship, as far as like I understand.
I mean, we saw them in Enterprise.
Okay,
but TOS, we saw them in the ship, and that was about it. And I think it would be interesting to see them play out in this, but at the same time, if they were to go to the Borg, I mean, those could be transwarp hubs that opened up.
Or I'd be okay seeing more of the Orion crime syndicates. I would be okay with that if they somehow tied that into a long-running plot thread. I think that'd be pretty cool. I
do think Section 31 is going to be a pretty big play, and you're going to get Emperor Giorgio showing up to some degree.
That'd be pretty cool, and I really hope they do follow up on that. Although I would say I'm fairly optimistic for this season. Like I said, it's going to drop early 2019, which means in terms of what it has to go, other big sci-fi properties it's got to compete against. Game of Thrones comes out early 2019. I don't know when The Expanse comes back. Now that it's been picked up, it got picked up by Amazon, right? Was it Amazon or Netflix? Amazon.
I think it was Amazon.
Yeah, so it's certainly got its work cut out for it. The only competition it really has would be Game of Thrones, but really phasers versus dragons, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see what happens with that, but next year is going to be a good time for like sci-fi because the Orville comes back as well.
In December.
We saw a trailer for that. I would have predicted that would have come back during Super Bowl, but I'm guessing CBS. My guess is we'll see the first part of the first 2-parter episode for the season premiere on Super Bowl Sunday. That's my prediction. And they'll sell major ad space for it if they're smart. Or we'll see it like... No, I'm honestly going to say Super Bowl. They're probably going to stick with it. We'll probably see a big ad campaign ramping up to it. I've got friends in Toronto that are working on the show. They work in the costume department. So
nice.
I haven't heard anything out of them, probably because I have NDAs so tight that, not even light can escape.
I would love Pike's captain's uniform.
I think that the costuming this year looks really on point. I was really, really impressed with it. I've actually seen some of the fan cosplays. There's a girl on my Facebook who did a Discovery uniform, and she got all the little details right. And it impresses me how much the fan community can do, and when you get the professionals doing it on the show. I mean, say what you will about the Klingons, their costumes looked great, and the makeup looked pretty cool, even if you don't like the design of it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the designs of them, just because of the alien race. If they would have named it something else, like, I would have been, like, totally done with it. It's still awesome work.
Exactly. Like, I'm hoping this year we see just more of the Star Trek universe maybe fleshed out now that we have 2018/2019 special effects. We have more money put into the show. The scope of the universe is being expanded. We're not just tied into this one little part where the war is happening. And I don't know, I've got some fairly high hopes of this, because Star Trek Discovery for me last year was a pleasant surprise. It kind of made me a fan of Star Trek again. It kind of got me interested in it. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see exciting things from it. If we did see a new version of the Borg, I would be totally over the moon for that, because I'm a Borg whore. What can I say? With Discovery's expanding it out, because 30,000 light years, that's a pretty sizable chunk of the Alpha Quadrant. In fact, that's pretty much a good chunk of the known universe, if I know my star charts right. I mean, I'm going mostly off the Modifius role-playing game for my knowledge here. But that's a pretty sizable chunk of the known Star Trek universe.
Yeah, well, at least for this part in time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's another thing, too. I got to factor that in, because this takes before the original series. Yeah, bullshit. But maybe we'll get more answers to that, because at least Pike's uniform looks like it's supposed to. An updated version thereof, not just Captain Kirk's mustard shirt.
It's got the Discovery aesthetic to it, but the colors of TOS.
Yeah, it's got the colors, it's got the armbands. It looks like it should. It doesn't look goofy.
Yeah, it actually fits really well with when you consider the uniforms they get in Wrath of Khan. Mm-hmm. Wrath of Khan would be the next natural progression of those uniforms.
Yeah.
And so it fits. And if you notice when in the clip where they're in the little spiral ships that look like the things from Star Trek Beyond, it looks like they have the motion picture uniforms in it.
That I didn't notice.
Yeah, it looks almost like the motion picture. Go back and watch that. It's the same. I mean, it's the Discovery uniform, but it's got the colors and aesthetic of the motion picture, like the Kirk uniform from the motion picture, where he's Admiral. Okay. That's what they're wearing. So, not that those were the greatest uniforms in the world, but they just stand out to me. So,
yeah. One of the other things that happened with Star Trek Discovery, obviously with getting the new trailer and getting a semi-release date for it, is this surprised me, is because Steve plays a lot of Star Trek Online, and when I saw this story pop up on Kotaku, I'm like, okay, we got to talk about this. There's actually going to be a significant story tie-in for Star Trek Online, and as far as I understand, it's actual missions that tie into Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery.
The first half of Season 1. So before they get into all the Mirror Universe content. So what'll be interesting is to see how they tie this in. I'm assuming that they're going to make the character, because it sounds like they're going to have create a Federation character from the Star Trek Discovery timeline, which would probably be not much different than how people are able to start a Dominion character right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or start a 25th century Starfleet or 23rd century Starfleet. I'm assuming it'll be the same general process. And I'm wondering if you're able to start in the Discovery timeline, play through that, and then go to the TOS, and then go to, the 25th century, like to complete through the game like it would have in the normal timeline. I'm just curious how they're going to play that out, or if it's going to be totally separate. I hope they go the other route, just because it would make it more interesting from a story standpoint to start a new character, because you could take that Discovery character you created all the way through the entire timeline.
That's kind of what I hope that they do end up doing, and this might be enough for me to try dusting off my old account and maybe going back in.
I will say this, if you haven't played in a long time, it's actually worth it. The DS9 expansion is really cool. Like, you get to play the Ferengi infiltrating an enemy ship, the Iconians.
Oh!
To retrieve the blade of Kahless. So, like, your Quark, Rom, or not Rom, but Nog, and then two other characters infiltrating it to steal it, as it were. Because it's everything in Star Trek Online, what I love about it is it's so connected with all of the canon. There's even a point where you're summoned by Agent Daniels to go to the Kelvin timeline to stop the sphere builders, and you actually see the Kelvin timeline Klingons and the USS Constitution, and you get one mission there, but it's still like it all ties together. Like, every bit of the timeline, every version of the timeline gets covered in this game, and I love the expansive. I don't necessarily love like all the aesthetics or like the kind of the way the gameplay works, but I have fun with the customizations, the ability to spec out and design everything, and then I love the story, and that's why I play it. And so, like, adding this to already what we got with DS9, it just makes sense. Like, we've had a Voyager arc, we've had DS9 arc, we've had kind of sprinkled TNG throughout most of it, and TOS through most of it. So it's in some huge Enterprise plots, but it's a pretty solid game. And so if you add this to it, it's gonna be pretty much just like Trek out of this world. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
Yeah, and I think the fact that they're keeping it being supported, especially since the MMO, it's not unfair to say that that genre is starting to lose a little bit of steam, because, I mean, despite the fact that WoW is still the most dominant one out there and it's just getting a new expansion released in the last little bit, the age of the MMO is starting to slow down. There aren't as many as there once were, but the fact that Star Trek is still... It is free to play. It's supported by microtransactions and all optional material. You can get it in game without paying a cent, but good luck.
It's a lot of grinding.
It's a lot of damn grinding. So yeah. Good luck to you, pal.
Yeah, good luck with that. I wasn't even aware of that until you sent me the link to it, because I hadn't even. It was totally new, like, as of today, because I haven't been online, so it wasn't something I noticed until then.
Yeah, it was something. I was kind of surprised there wasn't more fanfare around it, but then again, we just got the trailer. I'm actually surprised there wasn't more, like, hey guys, come back to Star Trek Online. Like, there wasn't more, like, ads on Facebook or something like that, so.
But, like,
yeah, if it wasn't for Kotaku, I wouldn't have known.
Well, like I said, they just came out with their latest expansion on DS9, so where it's like 8 or 10 missions or something like that on DS9, and you get to it shows how involved the changelings were, the founders, on like a lot of the impact of certain species in the Trek timeline, specifically the Herc and the Klingons, and why the Herc and the Klingons went to battle in the first place. And that stupid founder from DS9 that started the Dominion War is part of the problem in this expansion as well.
Try to think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Because you had to free her to stop the Dominion that disappeared in the wormhole. Because they were ejected in like 20, 30 years into the future from DS9's timeline. And took over the DS9 station. And so that's when you had to release the original founder that was locked up to deal with the problem. So, but yeah, I'm like I said, I'm still loving the game.
In other Star Trek news, actually, for our good friends from This Week in Geek over at Modiphius, who is the UK-based publisher of the Star Trek official role-playing game, Star Trek Adventure role-playing game, just released a couple of books in the last little bit. They released the Command Division source book. They also released the Beta Quadrant source book, which talks about the Romulans, the Orion Syndicate, etc., etc. I actually had a chance to sit down with developer Sam Webb, who is the line developer for Star Trek, and how he just kind of fell into that job literally, but also how he has a chance to work on different books like Science, Ops. There's a Delta Quadrant book coming out next year. So these guys have the license for quite some time. I got a little bit of info out of them. There's going to be a starter set coming out next year, or actually, sorry, closer to Christmas rather. So if you want to find out more from that interview, I'm sure Steve can post a link on Geekcast Radio, or you can go over to thisweekingeek.net, check out the botched roll that I did this week, or last week rather, depending on when this episode airs. You'll be able to find that over there. Just look for my interview with Sam Webb.
And so the other thing too with Trek that we haven't covered is IDW is doing a Star Trek vs. Transformers crossover.
Yes. Actually, one of the artists is on my Facebook. I didn't realize it. It's an artist named Philip Murphy. He's drawing a lot of the covers for this, and it looks surprisingly cool. I'm actually surprised this hasn't been done earlier. But Star Trek is no stranger to goofy crossovers.
Well,
there was Star Trek
I think the
X-Men.
first one was Star Trek vs. X-Men.
Yep, Star Trek versus the X-Men. They had Star Trek versus Doctor Who a couple years ago, where Captain Kirk fights Cybermen, and Captain Picard and Matt Smith team up against the Borg and the Daleks.
I think
it's Cybermen.
I think it's funny though that they took Star Trek, the animated series, and G1 and mixed it. Yeah,
you know what? I'm kind of happy they did that, because it makes sense to me, simply because animation versus animation, so why the hell not? So the fact that I can have cat people and, like, I don't know, Blitzwing is kind of entertaining to me. So I've seen some of the in-progress covers that have been posted to this guy's Facebook. He does post it out on Twitter as well, and the artwork seems pretty on point. I don't know what the story is, but you know what? IDW treats its properties pretty well, so it won't be stupid. It won't be silly. It'll be interesting. Obviously, it's going to... my guess is it'll involve around Energon and dilithium, and somehow the Klingons will get involved, because I think they're on the cover to one of the issues, actually. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with this. I'm excited. I might buy the first issue digital, and if I like it, I'll pick it up.
Yep, I will definitely be interested in this.
Oh, another thing to mention before we leave you, we didn't cover this one before too. If you have Netflix, and at this point, who the hell doesn't, check out, there's a show on there called The Toys That Made Us, and they did an entire episode dedicated to Star Trek toys. And you'd be surprised how many people have handled the license for Star Trek over the years to varying degrees of success, from Art Asylum to Playmates toys, to other license holders, and there's some pretty interesting stories on there. In fact, if I had disposable income, I would love to get the Spock police helmet, simply because it is so stupid looking and it's ridiculous. I think it would make a nice centerpiece of a collection. But I don't know, Steve, is there anything else in Trek that we can talk about? I don't think so.
I've got two other things.
Okay.
The first one is that they reveal that they're going to do Star Trek short tracks.
Like
So it's
slot car racers?
it's a series of monthly short form stories that will function like bonus content and air on CBS All Access in conjunction with the larger Star Trek Discovery series. CBS says that short tracks will air in installments of about 10 to 15 minutes as an opportunity for deeper storytelling and exploration of key characters and themes that fit into the expanding Star Trek universe. So among these planned episodes are a Harry Mudd episode directed by Rainn Wilson, and starring him, of course, a sidebar for Ensign Sylvia Tilly, an episode starring Aldous Hodge, no idea who that is, as a man stranded on a deserted ship, and a dive into Lieutenant Commander Saru.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
So, yeah, that's one of their things. They're still being kind of tight-lipped on what the other series are going to contain. I'm still hoping for a Captain Picard series, limited edition series, but one can only hope. Or one where all the captains come back together for, like, one kind of insane miniseries. But, yeah, there's that. And then the fact that they've cast their new Spock. But they haven't revealed who it is. So they are going to have a new Spock.
So hopefully we'll find out sooner as opposed to later.
Yeah, it says they're casting a new Spock. And it's not a possibility it's been done. So they're just going to... They're going to keep that probably tight-lipped for quite some time. It'll probably be towards the end of season 2 where they, or towards the end of season 2 where they kind of discover that, as they're saying that the mystery involves mysterious red spots that are occurring throughout space, and Pike seeks out and takes command of the Discovery in order to further investigate this mystery and Spock's disappearance.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got on Trek. Just couldn't leave those out.
So, yeah, be sure to keep listening here to Future Imperfect as we find out more topics to talk about. Maybe we'll take a deep dive into one of the movies, or maybe take a look at a character or a piece of technology or other big news, because, hey, water was found on Mars today. So that opens up new possibilities for terraforming. So maybe we'll talk about the Genesis device or something like that. I'm sure we could figure out something to talk about here on Future Imperfect, because, hey, we talk about everything. Actually, you know what, Steve? Have you watched The Expanse? Steve?
No, I have not.
Well, maybe an idea is for what to tide us over till next year with Star Trek. Maybe we'll try the first couple episodes of The Expanse, and we'll see if you like that, because I know you watched Lost in Space this past year. I haven't. So maybe you do The Expanse, I'll do The Expanse, I'll do Lost in Space, you've already done it, and we'll maybe find some sci-fi to recommend to people, maybe to tide them over, because I'm sure people have seen classics like Battlestar, Babylon 5. Maybe we'll see some of the lesser-known stuff that's out there.
Oh yeah, totally.
So anyway, for this edition of Future Imperfect, I have been your captain for this voyage out here in the Alpha Quadrant, but I've been joined by my faithful Fleet Admiral, Stephen Phillips, and until next time...
Live long and prosper.
In any case, see you